Hey there everybody, welcome to another impromptu video where I'm going to attempt to go through some more upgrades that you can do to your Amiga. First of all, how to speed it up. And so first of all, a recap. In one of the previous shows you can see we managed to get this bar going up the top. You can see it's got a time on there, it shows us our RAM, it shows us what kind of kickstart that we're running, CPU, and also what mode that we're running as well. That can be very helpful. And we looked at the startup sequence last time, so let's just edit that. And S startup sequence is not an executable. Edit, oh, ED. Edit is a separate thing in Workbench, and that's like a cut down version of edit, but I don't think I've got the edit command installed in this thing. So if you remember last time, let's see, we've started fastmem first. That means anything that can go into fastmem will go in there, and that will save us our chip RAM. We definitely need as much chip RAM saved as possible, so definitely have that in there. And that came as Workbench 1.3, so you might not find that command on any other Workbench, but if you find the Workbench 1.3, I'm going to see you can find a fastmem first. In fact, I think that's in the system drawer, if I'm not mistaken. In Workbench 1.3, you can drag that in and use it as a command. It's just an executable, so you can call it a command if you want to do that. And then it looks at wherever we are in the system. It looks at C version, looks at exec library, and sees that. And if it's not the biggest and the best exec library in the world, it goes through all these. If it's 33, then it goes to 1.2, 34, 36, 37, 38. Most of these go to 1.3. This is supposed to go to Kickstart 2 and 2.1, but I haven't bothered configuring those on this setup. So if it's Kickstart 33, Workbench 1.2 will load up. And if it's 34, i.e. Kickstart 1.3, it will load up Workbench 1.3. Sounds mega confusing. But anyway, if I'm loading up Kickstart 3.1, it actually loads up Workbench 3.9. And that's because 3.9 is compatible with Kickstart 3.1. And for 3.0 and everything else, I'll load up Workbench 3.1. So Kickstart 3.1 and 3.0, there are too many differences between those, and there aren't enough differences that it's going to make a huge difference. So I actually use Kickstart 3.0 when I'm using Workbench, and 3.1 goes to 3.9. And 3.9 has all my RTG stuff set up on it, which you might remember I think we went through. And or else if it's not Kickstart 45, which is like, you know, an Amiga 5000, otherwise it goes to Kickstart 3.1, so it loads Kickstart 3.1, Workbench 3.1 anyway. And then if it's none of them, it ends. So then we assign directory opus to wherever we've got that installed. We then run assign x, and then we run MCP. Fortunately that doesn't work because MCP are multi, protocol thing that has all those different upgrades to it, like the title bar that we saw and the clock and everything else. That cancels assign x. So what I really want to do is, all these things should be in a path, so I should just be able to type run c assign x if they are in the path, and the path should be set up with Workbench anyway. But I like to do it the long way. The direct path is dh1c run, so it can't get that wrong. It goes to nil, so that means it doesn't come out with any output on the screen, and we point it to dh1c. That's the absolute path to assign x, and so that should work. I'm just wondering, yeah, there you go, why it's longer on one line than on the other. And C dh1c assign x. Now I can get rid of that one. So that means MCP should run and then it runs assign x. Hopefully that is going to work. And then doesn't go GB, loads Workbench after a bit of a delay in the NCLI. So what we're going to do, without further ado, is we're going to reset that and see if that actually works. And it comes up with MCP, good. So if I type, I want to go here, it's going to not come up. So for some reason, MCP conflicts with the sign X, which is not very good, because a sign X see a sign X unknown command. So in this case, it doesn't look like I've put the absolute paths in. For some reason it keeps doing that. But anyway, if you run that now, hopefully it should still work. So it does work, but it doesn't work for me on the start subsequence. Anyway, never mind that. You can see I've got Vanilla Conquer hanging around on my workbench. I've left that out from wherever it was, but I can now put that away. So let's put that away. And that's my PC drive, that's a PC drive, that's another PC drive. So we'll just put them up there and snapshot them. This welcome thing is something that I created for people that maybe wanted to get my hard drive. I haven't actually released it online yet, but it goes through how to install it and, you know, what's on the actual partition, all my workbenches, how to degrade stuff. You click on this and that and the other to degrade stuff. That's actually talking about this directory, the WB config directory, where we can go into degrade mode, where we are at the moment, or we can run the user startup, or we can run the full workbench and the full iPrefs, and that gives us that blue background that you saw us install, that blue shaded background, and all the other fancy screen modes that we've got going on. And so at the moment we're running degraded mode, Workbench 3.1, Kickstart 3.1. Now, there's a question that's just arrived on Lemon Amiga about speeding up your computer, because some guy had an A30, he thought that he was running it at full speed, and to get full speed out of IDE devices and full speed out of your workbench and things like that, you really have to turn on your caches if you've got anything above an A20. So what we're running at the moment is an A30, but this is an ECS Amiga 3000, so it doesn't really have much. If you have an A20 and you run setpatch, well, let's just run it in here. Setpatch. What that will do is switch on all these kinds of high graphics modes. It's not going to turn on AGA because we're running Amiga 3000, but it will enhance the computer so it runs a bit quicker. Graphics hash table, title bar, the memory pools, and the data cache. That's the most important one, because that speeds up our computer by putting a special cache onto the CPU. And we can type the CPU command, which is in C, and that comes with Workbench 2.0 and above. You can type that in and it'll tell us what we've got. We've got an A30 on board at the moment, and we've got these caches, and it's not actually very clear what this actually means. And when I had my Derringer A30 card back in the 1990s, it came with a command called caches. So we're going to run that now. It's in Lemon Amiga. If you look at hardware and software and missing commands in the hardware and software kind of folder on Lemon Amiga, you'll find all these commands. So one of them is caches. It tells us at the moment that we've got the instruction cache enabled, the data cache enabled, the write allocate, and the instruction burst enabled. And we've enabled the instruction burst because of setpatch. Ordinarily it might not come with these, and in fact if we reset the computer again, and let's just see what it can normally come up with. If you just run a normal startup sequence, it won't usually do anything. So let's just run that, let's have a look, and yes, with the A30 all it does is it enables the instruction cache from the start. You don't have to do anything, it'll just do that for you. And then it'll also turn on the write allocate cache as well. If you have an A20, then I think it still enables the instruction cache, and I don't think it's got anything else on it. I don't think you can switch anything else on an A20, but if you've got an A30, you can switch on a bit more things. So if you type CPU, it will tell you what you can turn on and which things you can turn off. So we can type CPU data burst, and that will switch it on, hopefully. Data no cache, but we've got data burst on, so we've got the instruction cache but no burst, and data no cache, but we've got the burst on. So if we type in the caches again, that will show us that we've got the data burst on. So this caches command, I've no idea where it came from. It came with my Derringer card. It could be bespoke command, but at least it tells you what you've got on, and you wouldn't know that you've got these on, or you haven't got these on from the start. Every time you switch one of these on, it's going to speed it up. So with the caches command, you can do plus instruction burst, and that will switch it on. And you can also switch on the data burst as well, and that means you can see the data cache, the data burst, and the instruction cache and the instruction burst. Hopefully it should all be on. So the only thing we haven't got is the instruction cache freeze, and I think that maybe comes with the A40, not quite sure. But tapping CPU, we can get some extra commands out of this thing. So for one thing, we can map the ROM, and I'm not quite sure if map ROM comes as a command with WinUAE. It could do, but we've got Fastrom on this thing, so we can do CPU Fastrom. That will copy our ROM image into memory, maybe fast memory. You can see we've still got virtually every single bit of our 2 meg chip RAM from our fattest stackness in there, so which is possible. So you can see it's going to have a fast ROM on there. Instruction cache, instruction burst, data cache, data burst. What that will do with fast ROM, if you now reset the computer, it should reset a little bit quicker than it did before, because it's got ROM in there, and it also enables faster IDE as well, especially on AGA machines, which we're not running at the moment. But on a very slow machine, you can see if we load up the tools, it will definitely try to load those things up fairly quickly, and you can see running a stock machine, it will load up those even quicker now that we've got the fast ROM on. So if we loaded up these tools before, which I really should have shown you, but I didn't, now we've got the fast ROM on, that enables bigger and better IDE speeds, so we can actually get more speed out of the file transfer protocol. So that's fine. We've now switched on that, and that will stay on every time we reset the machine. Hopefully, at least if we reset it with the reset key, soft reset it, if we hard reset it, then that'll disappear. So what else can we do? We can, as I say, we can type these in with the CPU command if we want to do it the hard way and the long way. So we can type them all in, and we also have trap, but trap isn't going to work because I haven't installed. Well, it is actually working. I have no idea why it actually works, but that installs the trap handler for the error traps, the trap handler device in devs. So if you've got that installed, which I seem to have, it'll work. It'll copy the trap error codes, I think, to a special place so you can analyze them. And something else to do with the trap handler, that's for the error codes. If it starts blinking up with a software failure, that's something to do with that. So we've got that, and no trap, no MMU test check. I've no idea what that does. We can switch on external cache if we really want to do that, and maybe that will speed us up a bit more. And copy back, I think copy back again is part of the A40. Well, we're going to type that in anyway. It's not going to show us anything. It's not got copy back on there because we haven't got an A40. We've still got an ECS. But as I say, you can type instruction burst, instruction cache, data burst, data cache, or if you just download my caches file, where are we now? DB. I'm trying to type DB in there. IB plus DB. It will work eventually. Right, there you go. That switches everything on. So hopefully now that switches on the CPU caches, which is the other half of loading up all these images. So that means now that it should load up not only the directory quicker, but it should mean that it loads up the icons quicker as well. So believe me, this directory took 3 whole seconds to load before, when I didn't have anything switched on, the Fastrom and all the data caches and all the data bursts. Now it takes 1-2 seconds and it comes up, so it actually comes up quicker by a whole second. And this platform directory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7 seconds. I think that took 8 seconds before when I didn't have anything switched on. So it does speed things up a little bit. And if you have the AJ on as well, if you have an Amiga 1200, you can put AJ on, and what that will do is that will speed things up even more. But we're not running Amiga 1200 at the moment, and so if you have an A30, it's paramount that you put that in the startup sequence, and that speeds everything up from the start. So you can put all your CPU commands in there and all your caches in there, so that every time you reset the computer, it does that automatically for us. And the only reason why I'm not doing that at the moment is because the caches sometimes interferes with the playing of some games, and so you don't really want caches on when you're playing with some games. But if you're playing with tools, utilities, or Octamed, or Vista Pro, or Lightwave, or anything like that, or any of these hacks, then obviously if you switch on all the CPU caches and things like that, well, it looks like it's crashed. So it looks like sometimes switching those things on completely breaks things. So you can only have that switched on if you're really not bothered about things breaking on your Amiga setup. And so that's why I usually leave those switched off. But if you want fast file transfer, then definitely if you switch those things on, then it's going to help. And if you want faster internet speeds and I don't know, things like that, quicker hard drives, anything that uses an IDE cable, basically, even a flash card uses an IDE cable, you can need those switched on. They're not on a standard on Workbench, you're going to have to switch them on manually, editing your startup sequence. And startup sequence. Right, finally. So where would you put these? If you're going to have them on, probably put them on here. Fastrom, and then plus IB plus DB. And we're also, because we haven't set up the path to C yet, and we don't know where, well, we could set path to C here actually. C, oh, DX1, C, path, DH1, C, add. So it should add that to the path now. And so if I type CPU Fastrom and caches Fastrom, that might actually work. Who knows? Let's try that. The only thing you can do with Amiga is reset it and see how it fails. And so bang, we've now got it on, everything's switched on from the startup, and that means everything should now switch on the setpatch as well. Everything should now work. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there it is, 7 seconds. So everything should now work nice and quick, and hopefully things that are going to work on this thing are going to work. So I can't remember what I was actually going to move toy. I think, well, maybe something like that. It speeds it up a little bit. You won't really notice it on a non-AGS setup. And the other thing that we need to worry about is having fast RAM as well. On this particular setup, I've only got 2 meg slow Z2 fast RAM allocated. And if you have Z3 fast RAM, and if you have AGA, it'll speed it up even more. And I can't really well, I suppose I can reset the machine and try it again. Not that you're going to see that. Let's set up just normal AGA for this one, and the screen's going to not work, and everything else is going to not work. And we're now running A40 ECS at the moment. So I've no idea why it worked before and it's not working at the moment. What we're going to do is run setpatch, and that will mean it now goes to AGA. So I've now got A40 AGA. Let's see what caches are doing at the moment. I've now got instruction cache enabled and instruction burst enabled. So it looks like with this A40 that we've got on at the moment, it's only got instruction cache, instruction burst. Now that's very confusing. But anyway, you can see that's set up. The instruction cache is set up ordinarily. The data burst we've just enabled because we've just run setpatch, and everything else isn't going to work. So that's why caches didn't work. We're running in A40. And let's see, CPU. See, we're not running. Look, copyback. It's got copyback on it. So CPU Fastrom. Is that going to work? No, we can't put Fastrom in there either with the A40. So it depends what CPU you've got. If you've got an A60, might do something else entirely. But we've got copyback on there. We've got the data cache, the data burst, the instruction cache. No, we haven't got the data burst. We've got copyback instead. The instruction cache and the instruction burst, according to that, is on. Well, so according to that, we should have everything now switched on. You can see everything runs AGL40, very nice and quick. So that was about 3 seconds. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, well, 2.5. So that's because we've increased the CPU up to an A40. We've also got ATA, we've also got fast RAM in there. Fast RAM makes a huge difference to the loading of things, and it means that with this A40 AGA, with all these caches on, it means that everything runs as quickly as possible. So with the A20, you want fast RAM on, and you want everything else that an A20 can do, so it's as fast as possible, and run setpatch so it enables AGA. If you have any true fast RAM, make sure that that's selected or enabled in WinUAE. Otherwise, if you have Z2 fast RAM on any of your setups, if you've got an A20, an A30, A40 or above, then you shouldn't need it. That slow 16-bit fast RAM is only needed really for an Amiga 500. And even an Amiga 500, it has a separate, you wouldn't believe it, a separate chip. It has a separate chip for handling that if you have something plugged into the sidecar slot on the side of your machine, which virtually nobody has. But these days with flash ROMs, you get them built in. So that speeds up your machine even more. If you have fast RAM selected, plugged into the sidecar slot,